longer. So yeah, so welcome back. It's January the 30th now. It's the 30th is the normal time when we have meetings for the World Intellectual Wisdom Forum and also the International Institute of Peace Studies and Global Philosophy. So there are two bodies that sponsor these meetings. Let me just introduce, if you're not familiar, the International Institute of Peace Studies and Global Philosophy was set up way back in 1991 at the University of London when I was working on staff to create an Institute of Peace Studies in the hub of London. I was organising meetings in the House of Lords. I thought it would be logical we should have in Britain a peace studies centre for thinking through solutions to global problems which aren't about militarism. The military already had think tanks, institutes, centres, but nothing on peace. So I thought, innocent, naive little young academic starting out my PhD, I thought, well, what's not to like here? Here we are in 2025. We still don't have a Centre for Peace Studies in London anywhere. And but I'm still carrying on. I'm carrying on with the torch that I was given by the people that elected me, and we had a very impressive lineup of Nobel Prize winners all wanting peace. This was in '91. And there are still people in London at the university who are still active on peace stuff. So I'm going to recontact them all and bring them to the next meeting. There's people at UCL and elsewhere. So that's the one body, that's the academic thing. The other thing is this World Intellectual Forum, which I went to found in 2017, which was a brainchild of a interesting Indian guru at the time, Swami Chaturvedi. And I don't think you were at that founding meeting, Sam, or were you? I can't remember. When did you get involved?
I can't remember exact date.
Okay. Yeah, I can't. I don't think you were there. There were a bunch of us who went to this meeting in India, and we've carried on meeting. We met in person in 2019 in New Delhi.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't there, but I remember I joined on Zoom.
Around then, yes. So it's been, and it's ended up. I think that the founder chap. It's a strange story. Swami Chaturvedi disappeared
Yeah, yeah,
into the jungles of South India.
yeah.
We don't know where he's gone. He's gone on retreat. And then the other guy, Dr. Swaminathan, has also not been seen for a long time. So, we carry on. And I still think we need a World Intellectual Forum to balance the World Economic Forum, which is causing havoc around the planet. And we'll talk about that in a minute, what they're doing. So we're the kind of think tank to solve the problems of the world in a nutshell. So it's a big job. What I see our work as being is thinking through how peace can come. There's not enough people thinking about peace. They're all thinking about militarism and war and violence as the first solution. We've seen what happens in Gaza. Militarism doesn't bring solutions. It doesn't bring peace. It just brings more pain, more hardened people that are going to fight back later on. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to talk about peace policy, because we're the only think tank that has created a centre for peace policy. Nobody else even uses the term. We talk about foreign policy, economic policy, monetary policy, blah, blah, blah. What about peace policy? That means I want governments to think through what is our peace policy in the UK, in Turkey, in America, in France. And then thirdly, the nitty gritty is to do conflict resolution through advanced philosophical discourse. I mean, who else is doing it? It's got to be us. If you know other people that are running with philosophers for peace, please invite them to the next meeting. I just see walls everywhere, not intellecting. Okay, so that's why we're here and why it's important. I mean, it's just a very, very brief introduction. Let's go around the group now and just introduce yourself. Tell us what you're doing to advance peace thinking, peace policy in your context where you're based. George, let's start with you because you've joined us from. Are you in Tanzania today? You're still muted. I don't know why. You're not muted on the mic, but your volume is not working.
Hello, Thomas and everyone. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me again. I'm so happy to be here. Based in Tanzania, and I'm speaking from Tanzania right now. We've been on vacation for our Peace Wednesday webinars since December for 2 months. And I've taken this time to kind of go through what we've been, reflect on what we've been doing so far and plan for the future, but also been working on publications and also doing field work in, climate, climate stuff, climate change, and how it affects the less privileged people in society here in Tanzania. And so weekly webinars will resume on the 18th of February this year. Once again, I'm looking forward to seeing you all because I know some of you have been faithfully with us, and whenever you have time, you do join us. So when later, given some time, I'll talk about a little bit about the role of intellectuals in strengthening good political leadership in Africa. So thank you so much indeed, Thomas, for this.
Yeah, no, welcome, George. And later on, do tell us what happened, because I got a disturbed call about the elections and people were all being corrupt. Tell us what happened. I mean, you're not in jail, that's the important thing. They're not silencing the peaceniks in Tanzania, I hope. Good. Okay, thank you, George, great. Now, let's go to Moeen. Welcome from Istanbul. Tell us, about your work, what you do, Global Vision, and then we'll come back to you a bit later for the more detail, but this is just introduction.
Can you hear me?
Yes, fine, loud and clear.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Pleasure to join you. Thanks, Thomas. I don't want to say too much because I'm on your agenda, but basically my name is Moin Yassin. I'm the director of Global Vision 2000. We're a think tank set up in 2000 in the UK. We've done our 11th eschatology conference in December, and it's on the internet now. I'm pleased. And basically, yeah, a lot of our work is online on our website, which has now hit about 15 million visitors with over 10 to 20,000 videos. That's all I want to say at this stage.
Sure. No, thank you very much. And Moeen is, active in the Islamic world, trying to get Islamic intellectuals interested in peace and justice and solutions to the problems. Very important. Mahmoud, why don't you go next? Just introduce yourself. Hello, nice to see you. And Mahmoud runs the Lib Dems Association for Kashmir. Do you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about that? There'll be a longer slot coming up later. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, I'd like to apologize for being slightly late. The reason being that it was London, it was the prayer time here. So I read my prayers, then joined you. Thank you very much for having me. Basically, yes, I'm the chair of Liberal Democrat Friends of Kashmir. I've been working at the issue of Kashmir since 1984. As you know, Kashmir is not free, but I have not given up. And I continue to work with not only Liberal Democrat, but many other organizations to see a solution to Kashmir that puts the stakeholders of Kashmir first, i.e. the people of Kashmir. And I will obviously elaborate once I'm given more time later on. Thank you.
Yeah. Are you from Kashmir yourself, Mahmoud?
Yes, I am. And on the 15th of February, I'm going back to what's known as Azad Kashmir for 2 weeks. And I usually go because rather than read reports, I like to speak to people first-hand experience. And I think it helps me to, when I'm asked questions, to answer them with a good, knowledgeable, on-hand experience, as to put it.
Right. Yeah, sure. No, thank you. Okay, well, later on we'll come back to you. That's great. Okay, Nicolette, joining us from, are you in Greece or the States? Welcome.
Greece. I put Greece, yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for the invitation still, and I like to see what you all do. Basically, I'm just continuing monitoring the news, talking to people. I'm in some other groups, trying to understand. Yeah, I don't know what to say, honestly. I don't have a position. I
That's
don't
fine.
have a think tank. Yeah, but there's something called Spiral Dynamics Integral, the Claire Graves and Don Beck Institute that I told you about. I had
Sure.
sent you about a talk. There was an Israeli peace activist and a guy named Saeed Dubalswani. He's over in San Francisco where Amina is, and they gave their little talk. I've known him since 2009 when I was living in the Netherlands. And it's a like complexity systems way of thinking. I told you about it before.
Sure.
Yeah, but I'm looking at all the ways that people talk about peace. I mean, I see the NGOs, international development, U.S. Institutes for Peace, and like USAID is now gone, but they couldn't do anything in Azerbaijan when Artsakh was being ethnically cleansed, right? We have the global head director. Anyway, I don't want to, Samantha Power, the administrator who was up under Obama and over in Bosnia. And like, I'm sitting here in Europe and like, nobody understands the Balkans. Nobody talks about what happened in Serbia, what's happening now. It's a powder keg still in the Balkans. So I just kind of watch. But one brief thing I wanted to say is what I recently learned from Saeed. Peace has different definitions for different, what they say, evolutionary stages of development that its society is in. They use their monitors in the country, kind of like you, and they try to get a gauge for the center of gravity. And Claire Graves had colors for these stages. Now, they spiral and people can go back, depending on situations, famine, drought, earthquake, whatever. They can like go
Regress.
back to previous, right? And like a prism of light, they encompass all the other colors always at the same time. They always exist, right? I don't know, and if anybody knows what that is, maybe someday we can invite them to talk. But basically, every evolutionary level of human development that they see has its own definition of peace,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that
Right.
makes
So,
it all the more complex. Makes our
yeah.
job even more exciting. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So the
Good.
piece through dialogue, which you're doing, maybe I just wanted to say what I learned. Sorry, but the peace through dialogue is one level. Peace through commerce is what we're seeing now with the Trump Board of Peace, right? And libertarians taking over everywhere. And the highest level where we really want to be is what they're saying is peace through integration. Right, that's a yellow level according to them, and that's the European Union where it's supposed to be, not peace through commerce of the orange achievement-oriented business people like, right? We're supposed to transcend into something of integrating.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Now that's very
okay.
helpful, and we do actually have people on the call who can give us details of that, and we'll come to it in a minute. But thank you very much, Nicolette. And are you in Athens at the moment? Where are you in Greece?
I moved to central Greece in a city kind of economically plighted. I've been here 6 months, and people are kind of laughing, why am I here? Why would an American be here? They started at 100,000 population, like around 2008, 11 at the crisis in Greece, they were down to 60,000. People are bleeding into Athens or leaving the country. And
Yeah, you're staying out.
yeah, so since 11, they even lost 10,000. And most of them went to the United States and North Carolina, I'm finding. So there's a lot of dual citizen American Greeks who don't really value my French citizenship or wonder why I'm here from France. But
tell them you're a
so
spy
I'm.
for the World Intellectual Forum. That's fine. Just tell them. Okay,
Well,
thanks, Nicolette. We'll come back to you in a moment.
I'm
Great.
learning. I'm
Sean.
trying to talk.
Yeah, Sean, you're up next. Do introduce yourself. Welcome. Hello.
Yes, hello, Thomas and everyone. It's great to be here, and thanks, Thomas, for organising another seminar. My name is Sean English. I'm based here in Ireland, and like Thomas, I've been working in the area of peace studies, peace research, conflict resolution for decades now. And we can be very pessimistic at times, and this is kind of, I think, a pessimistic time. Just our campaigns at the moment, because we're a small neutral country, we're being dragged into this thing of called Rearm Europe, where they're planning another arms race towards the Third World War. You know, the 90 billion the European Union now have put aside to manufacture weapons. So, I mean, that's a conflict we're involved in now. We're trying to keep Ireland out of it, but it's not very easy. And it looks like the powers that be are just going to do that. They've not learned that arms races generally end up in war. That's the end. So that's part of the issues I'm involved with at the moment here from the small neutral country within the European Union.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Sean. We'll come back to that in a minute and do a
Yeah.
catch up on the European Peace Agency
Yeah.
project that we're working on together. So that's going to be important. Sam, welcome. You're up next on the screens here. Do introduce yourself. You'll have to unmute, sir. There should be a microphone on the screen. You just click it or something.
I think it's under audio. Yeah, audio.
Should be a symbol on your left, Sam. On your left bottom corner.
Yeah.
A red symbol. With the line going through it.
Back. Okay.
Finally. Hello.
Thank you. Thanks, Thomas. And thanks, everyone. Good to reconnect. My apology for not being able to connect earlier. I missed a couple of meetings. I've been fairly preoccupied with a couple of books that I did. And good to be back with you all. Like you all, I also worry about what's happening in the world. And I feel helpless. I think those who are in position of power and those who generate profit have come together, and power and profit has really ignored the issues of planet and people. Peace is an important issue, not just for people, but for planet as well as for development. How do we get to people who matter in terms of day-to-day decision making? I mean, we are all talking to ourselves, and I'm delighted that we talk to ourselves. I'm delighted that we all learn from each other. But I'm involved in several groups like this, and I feel that our voices are not heard. Of course, that doesn't mean we should give up, but we should realize that time is of essence. On one hand, we are talking about peace. On the other hand, we know what is going on in Ukraine, Gaza, Somalia, Venezuela, Iran, and just goes on and on. Those in power are doing their own thing. Those who have money are controlling the events in the world. And people like us sit in the back and we discuss, which is great for us, but I don't think we are going to make a difference. That's the conclusion, unless we do something very different. Okay. We don't have time, at least I don't have time. I know I'm 84 and I don't have much time. So we all need to really think through this and say, fine, we can continue to talk to ourselves, or do we identify 50 groups like ours and network and create a force that people would begin to pay attention? We don't control media. We don't have money to buy anybody. So media doesn't pay any attention no matter what we have to say. So, but I want to continue to work on it. I want to be there. I don't want to give up. But I thought I should share with you a little bit of frustration, more as colleague. Okay, thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Sam. It's like taking a cold bath in the old Roman system. I prefer the warm baths, but no, it's important. Thank you for that. I mean, you are the vice chair of the World Intellectual Forum, so I listened to your views with great interest, and you have walked in the corridors of power. You did know Rajiv Gandhi. You do know Rahul Gandhi, who's the leader of the Congress Party.
No, I meet with all the leaders. Let me tell you,
You
in the
have
last
the year. And you were
I
also
meet with all the key leaders. You know, I was in Colombia, met with the president. I was in Argentina. I was in Peru.
You were just in Oslo for the Nobel Peace Prize Awards, weren't
Yeah,
you? You were
I went to the
invited
Nobel Peace Prize, event.
You
I
meet
met
all the
of them.
VIP leaders. I mean, and so the question I would put back to you is, what are you doing to tell them? You're going to banquets in Oslo, but
Of course, I tell them
what
about
are you
my
doing?
concerns.
And that's why we can think together.
They listen. They listen and they say,
important.
great. And then they go off and do their own thing anyway.
Well, we need to hold them to account. And you are an intellectual.
Thomas, I agree
you
with
like
you.
to say you're not an intellectual, and you normally begin with saying, I'm just an engineer. But you do bother to
I'm just an
write
ordinary guy. I don't, qualify for being an intellectual.
No, I know you
I'm
all
a
say
concerned
that, but
citizen.
actually you are.
No, I'm a concerned citizen.
But
I
anyway,
talk to
we
people at
appreciate your
UN.
work.
I talk
And-
to people at UN, but nothing happens. You see?
Yeah, sure. So anyway, you've raised some important issues, and as we come back round,
I want
I'm
to focus
sure
on that, Thomas. I want to focus on how do we make an impact.
Yeah,
We
sure.
know all the problems. I wouldn't say all, but we know the problems. We know the solutions. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science.
Sure. Okay. Well, we'll come back round in a
But
minute.
when we have people who lie, cheat, who create hate, what do we do?
Well,
We
I
know they
know
shouldn't lie.
one thing we can do is we can make lying illegal in democratic fora, which
Yeah,
is
but we don't
my
have that
proposal.
power to make lying illegal. I would like to.
Sure.
I would like if somebody gives us a power, I would say, look, truth, trust, love, democracy, inclusion, sustainability, equality, justice, freedom. We know it. Who's going to do it? These guys
Right.
are exactly opposite.
Right. Well, thank you very
You
much.
look at
Sam.
what
I'd like
happened at
to move
Economic
on.
Forum.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's move on to our next guest, Claire, joining
Okay,
us from
I'm with you.
San Francisco. Nice to see you, Sam. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Claire, your turn. Do introduce yourself, and you might want to comment on the spiral dynamics lady who said her piece a minute ago. 'Cause I know you've been involved with that. But
Hi,
introduce
everyone.
yourself generally. Hi.
Sam, thank you for that. That's really gone deeply into my heart, and I appreciate your honesty. So thank you. A couple of things to share. With the backdrop of what Sam's just said, it's like what I'm speaking to is in some ways small potatoes. But one of the things I do is I work with people, humans, with their voice to bring about a more authentic kind of raw presence. I think that when we are in that state, it becomes less and less tolerable to deal with bullshit. So that's one area, and I see a lot of exciting things in that with the people I work with. So that's heartening for me. The other thing is that I have a platform called Dynamic Emergence, which focuses on the nature of being human, but not intellectually. It's about the experience of energy and how we can tell when people are lying. We can tell when we're lying. We can feel the sensations of energy and information through awareness of our consciousness. That sounds super wordy and intellectual, but it's a very physical experience that that people go through with me on the platform online. So those are kind of two of my main areas of focus that I've been doing for a really long time. And I think my impulse for that originally was just recognizing at a young age that there's lots of things one can do on the surface and they need to be done, but simultaneous to that, if we can actually have an effect on raising our awareness that consciousness influences how we do anything, our awareness of our consciousness and our potential. So that's kind of the little part of the garden I'm weeding and planting.
And you were just in Rajasthan, weren't you? Just to catch up.
I was, yeah.
Just tell us a couple of minutes.
Well, okay. So I went to Gujarat to do a concert. I'm a musician, apart from other things. And then I spent some time with Dr. Gandhi and Dr. Katari from Patrika, the sort of media empire, and had about 2 weeks in Jaipur and the neighboring areas. And we would have meetings talking about consciousness and kind of comparing Indian perspectives and cosmology with. They thought I might be an expert on Christianity, which is kind of funny. Because of my views on Christianity, apart from Christian mysticism. But it was just a wonderful meeting of hearts and souls and very graceful time. I was grateful for it.
Great. Well, I'm glad I could introduce you to
thank you, Thomas.
Part of the work. And Dr. Gandhi was invited today, but he's in his
I'm
late
from
80s.
Gujarat.
I was in Ahmedabad, Sam.
I know everybody. I mean, I know all my friends there.
Great.
We probably know a few people in common now then.
Yeah. We should talk sometime.
I'd
Are
like
you in San
that,
Francisco?
actually. I am. I'm moving around a lot. I was living here for 35 years and then gave that up in July to travel and meet people that I've been meeting online.
So next time in San Francisco, we'll have lunch together.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, let's move on. Thank you very much, Claire. Go and have a cough. Priscilla, nice of you to come. This is just a first go round. Introduce yourself briefly, what you're up to, your life story in 2 minutes. Thank you.
Apologies for being late. I was on another planning meeting for restorative justice workshop that we're doing a lot in Newark, New Jersey these days, and so we were planning for the day two. I'm with Creative Response to Conflict in New York, just north of New York City, and I do a lot on restorative practices, conflict resolution, bias awareness. Apologies for being an American with what's going on. It's just, we can't believe it every single day. But I am hopeful that the demonstrations are growing by leaps and bounds. I just got an email this morning which had a song about Minneapolis. If you're going to Minnesota, be sure to wear flowers in your hair. So that was that was very uplifting for me in this dark time. So I guess that's my 2 minutes, but hello everyone.
Sure. No, Priscilla's been also, we met in India. She was running a restorative justice workshop at the last international conference on peace and nonviolent action run by the Jain community. So we've known each other a long time, and she organises monthly meetings on restorative justice. So if anyone, wants to come along and learn more, they're very interesting meetings. I've met some great people through them. Susan Malwanga, would you like to introduce yourself, Susan? Hello, welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. My name is Susan Mlangwa. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm from Tanzania and I'm a sociologist. I've been invited here by George Mutalemwa. I work with him in one of our projects at the St. Augustine University. I'm a senior researcher there, and we're working on a project on climate change, and we are looking at everyday living and how people are negotiating greening transition from things like charcoal and moving to cleaner energy. Yeah, so my PhD is in everyday living, and I usually study people's ways of initiating agency on their own, and then how this can be uptaken by the government or other parties to enable to create some change. But it's more looking into the people themselves and how they understand their environment and how they feel fit, which is the right way for changing it or adapting in terms of moving forward. Yeah, so that's me.
Right. No, thank you very much, Susan. That's great to hear that work is going on. It's important in Tanzania, so thank you. Well, I think we've all. Oh, Ros, do you want to introduce yourself? You're joining us from Sussex. Can you hear us?
Hi, Thomas. Yes, I can hear.
Greetings.
Thank you. Greetings. Yeah, I'm listening with interest. I've been part of a peace movement which seems to be in itself sadly dividing in behavior that I find very sad. I'm also part of a community of heart ambassadors, and we practice heart math, and I think that's, for me personally, my contribution, also as a Buddhist practitioner, of course. And it's very uplifting to be alongside a community of people who believe that there is a shift of consciousness happening, and much as events are deeply disturbing, I would say, putting it mildly, there is a sense of agency. I think I heard somebody just mentioning agency. There is definitely a sense that each and every person with a heart has tremendous power. Science is backing up the power of prayer, absolutely. And so please do not be defeated. I absolutely think that there's something quite exciting underway.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your hope. I should just say Rosalind Cook has been a very good friend of my late mother, who was a peace activist in Brighton in Sussex since the 1960s, and was particularly strong against nuclear weapons. My mother was one of the key anti-nuclear weapons campaigners in Britain. And Ros is sort of part of that. You've been very active on monitoring what's going on against nuclear weapons worldwide. And that's a really important feature to our work. We shouldn't lose sight of that. So thank you for all the work you've done. But yes, you're right. The heart is the agent of transformation. So let's keep those two issues.
And I can update, because we just had the 5th anniversary of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons.
Right.
Entering into force.
Okay.
And that it has an unprecedented number of countries in terms of the momentum. The countries ratifying it are over half the world.
Right.
So
have pledged not to use or stockpile or develop nuclear weapons, right?
Exactly,
and not allow them on their soil.
and on their soil, it's obviously a legal prohibition. So I think that there is tremendous hope, because it's definitely part of the infrastructure. And there is the first review conference will be in November in New York. So definitely keep news of that alive, I would say. The mainstream are not going to cover it. But it's happening,
still, I mean, my institute's pledge is to do what we can to get rid of all nuclear weapons worldwide. That's the aim we're working on here. But
exactly.
Unfortunately, and it goes back to Sam's point, how do the little people get the big, powerful people to listen? Because the superpowers who have nuclear weapons stockpiled, including the smaller, medium powers like Israel, Pakistan, India. They're gonna. How are we going to persuade them? What do we have to do? To make the case for unilateral, complete nuclear disarmament. That's a question to have hanging over us, I think, as we proceed. And if we turn to discuss Kashmir first, which would be important, that is actually a nuclear fault line because Pakistan is a nuclear power, so is India. I don't know the status of Kashmir. I presume there's no nuclear weapons in Kashmir on either side of the dividing line. But, how can we get that solved, the Kashmir problem? That's maybe Mahmoud could talk to that briefly, and then, and Moeen, if you want to chip in, and then we could ask Sam what his view is, and anyone else. Let's start with the Kashmir thing. Mahmoud, go for it. Because you're active in the Lib Dems.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Just before I come to the solution, if you don't mind, could I just update everyone on what the situation is on Kashmir, on human rights?
Yeah, tell us what you know.
Right. And I'm sorry that something you will find, perhaps not comfortable listening, but that would it's not comforting to me to have to tell you this figures. At the moment, on a population of just 15 million, I'm just talking about the Indian side of occupied Kashmir, by the way.
Okay.
There is 900,000 soldiers. It's officially the most highest militarized zone in the world. It's not North or South Korea. It's not Ukraine. It's Kashmir, a country you might not even have heard of. Sorry, just before I start, I want to just Dr. Thundefron, just let you know, I used to work with the late Lord Eric Avery, because we're all in the world, we're all interconnected somehow, and I wanted to say that first. So I don't know whether you remember late Lord Eric Avery. Nicolette, you're in Greece, and I used to work with a very good member of European Parliament called Alf Lomas, who was of Greece descent. Sam, I think I work with the Dialites, and I have many South Asian friends and Indian friends and South Indian friends and Sri Lankan friends. So we're all interconnected in the world, and it's up to us to remember this, that we're not free until everyone is free. We're not equal until we're all equal. And it's that goal that we work towards and achieve that will take out the nuclear weapon, the misunderstanding, the racist, the hatred, the borders that exist, all of this, and the billion that's spent on armies that could be spent on social welfare and betterment of the world. Yeah?
Yes, amen to that. Yeah, we're all good.
And has a point of strength. Never believe that nothing cannot be achieved. Remember this, there is a little droplet of rain that falls to the ground, that becomes the stream, that becomes the river, that goes to the sea. And nothing bigger and more powerful than the sea. We are the sea of people when we stand shoulder to shoulder. When we remember that regardless of race, religion, creed, class, or caste, I am not free until you're free, and I'm not equal until you're equal. And that's what they're afraid of. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I meant to say that first, but I'm doing it.
No, very important.
Now, on getting back to Kashmir, nearly 10,000 underage girls and women have gone missing in Indian occupied Kashmir. There's no record of them. We don't know where they've gone. But what time span? From 2019 to 2023, that's 5,000 underage girls and women have just gone missing. And I bet your news channels have never even covered this. You've never even heard of that. Think of those poor families. They no longer. Sorry. They cannot find them who they are. Good. Now that's 5,000 a year that works out to. Imagine what that figure is now. That's someone's daughter, mother, sister, anybody. It's up to us to be their voice. In 1991, Kun and Peshpura, two villages, were surrounded by the Indian army. The men were taken out. Do Google this, by the way. Do your research. And the men were taken out on the basis that they were looking for militants. Once the men were taken out, the women were raped. From underage girls to pensioners' age. No one was spared. To this day, not a single soldier has been held responsible. Amnesty International, human rights organization, everybody had said that this happened. The only one that denies it is the Indian Army. You cannot deny the truth. How long can you deny the truth? It's up to us to be the voice of these women. Drugs take, and you know about Kashmir has increased by, and I'm not kidding, this is the figures that is being reputable news as Al Jazeera, 1,500%. Now remember, there's one soldier for every fifth or sixth person in Kashmir. So who's drug peddling? Who's allowing them in? I'm not accusing anyone. But remember, there's 900,000 soldiers in Kashmir. So why are we not hearing anything? Why did the media not cover it? Well, one thing is we can easily throw stones and blame them. But to be honest, it's the draconian way that the issue is. For example, a person can be arrested under the Public Safety Act, they call it, but it's nothing more for a license to act without any accountability. A person can be arrested for no charge at all. They don't have to accuse me of anything. They don't have to say anything, but they can hold me for 2 years without any sentence or any accusations. And many people have been held under that and have never been heard of again. People's phones are regularly checked if they posted anything. The Kashmir press office has Indian soldiers stationed inside it. So imagine I am in the Kashmir press office. Now there's an Indian soldier beyond me with a machine gun. What am I going to write? Except what a wonderful place Kashmir is and how beautiful it is. There was a very good picture that someone did, and I think it was a trip, and they showed the official Indian film of the delegate, and he showed like pretty boats, everything. Then someone done a longer shot and managed to smuggle it out. And behind each sort of what was the advertising board, there were soldiers hidden behind it with machine guns hiding so they don't come in the picture. So that's a situation that exists in Indian occupied Kashmir.
Okay, so what about the solutions?
Right. Everyone had different solutions. My personal one is, and getting back nuclear weapons, both Pakistan and India have nuclear weapons. We're stuck in the middle. We're a very small country stuck in the middle, like Nepal. We did have an army right up to 1971, but it's fruitless to have an army when you got such a big, so we integrated into the Pakistani army and then had an agreement of mutual defense of attack on one is attack on the other, just sort of put it into perspective. My personal one is that Kashmir was never part of the British Raj even. It was independent. And if the people of Kashmir are given full independence again, there can be a buffer zone between the two countries. You could simply have an agreement that if the Indian army stays, I don't know, 5 miles back or a mile back, and the Pakistan army stays mile back, 5 miles back, if they come, then a closer attack on one is attack on the other kind of situation, and it can act as a buffer zone. And what that allows is that the two countries can spend money on their welfare and academic, and we people of Kashmir can live in peace, because that's what we want. How do we sell the idea of Kashmir? Well, poetry and music are universal. So working with a very good Turkish friend of mine, Tugur Everon, we made a song on Kashmir and one of the leader, Yasin Malik. Uh, and I will put a link to the YouTube post up for you because music is universal. Doesn't matter how old you are, whether, and it's a very good way of getting the message across. There are people that do believe in this solution. Yasin Malik, leader of the JKLF, being one. He believes that by the way, he was a militant, but then turned pacifist and has not turned pacifist 15 years ago. And JKLF, which was a militant group, has stopped being an armed group for the last 15 years. Yeah. And I believe that's the best way forward. And I think Lord Avery made a contribution towards that goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way forward. I think the way forward is for people to work together, regardless of religion, faith, and be the voice of one another. I will, if you don't mind, I will also put my Twitter ID there. So if anyone wants to contact me afterwards, they can and speak any question. I'm happy to take any questions anyone has in case I missed anything or they want to know anything.
Okay, well, no, thank you very much, Mahmoud. That was very interesting. I have a question for you. You say there are 900,000 Indian army soldiers in Indian-occupied Kashmir. How many Pakistani army soldiers are there in the Pakistani-occupied part of Kashmir? Do you know that figure?
I don't, but I will say this. I have been to Azad Kashmir. I've been several times. I have seen no evidence of the Pakistani soldiers oppressing the people of Azad Kashmir. And matter of fact, I've always been treated with respect and dignity.
Okay, so it'd just be nice to know the figure. And obviously, I think as a peace project, what we would like is the demilitarization of Kashmir. It would be lovely if those 900,000 soldiers from India could go home, leave maybe 1,000. And if, I love your vision that Kashmir could be independent, autonomous, special status, buffer state, but it could be demilitarized, which would mean no nuclear weapons, but no armies occupying. I mean, as a philosopher, I'm a great fan of Kashmir Shaivism, which is a very ancient brand of Hinduism. One of the most profound of all the Hindu metaphysical traditions came from Kashmir. But in the Islamic world, some of the greatest Sufis of India came from Kashmir, and also Nehru's ancestors were from Kashmir. So Kashmir's provided tremendous intellectual superpower status, for both Muslims and Hindus. I would love to. I have a friend in the University of Srinagar who teaches there, who often comes to our meetings. Shabina Kutay, she's a PhD in English literature of all things. I'd love to do some events in Srinagar on that. Get Kashmir excited about both the Islamic and the Hindu traditions, and of course the Buddhists. They were very, very important in Kashmir. So its wealth is in its spiritual depth. We don't need soldiers to come and police this place. This is one of God's chosen beautiful countries, in my opinion. So I don't know. Moeen, do you want to come in at this point?
You're absolutely right. Sorry, can I just come? You're absolutely right on the intellectual level of that there is on Kashmir.
Yeah.
But I'm going to enlighten you with something that you may not know. Even to this day, one of my friends is a gene scientist who's worked on bringing blindness back. You can be totally blind, and for £1 million, he can make you see. And he's from Kashmir.
Well, there we are.
So think of the contribution that will make in 5-10 years' time when somebody blind can literally see again. And that's a Kashmiri doing it for you.
He's a Jain from Kashmir, yeah?
He's actually from Azad Kashmir. He lives in St. Albans in Belgium. He's a gene scientist. Okay. And he's achieved making the blind, as a part of it, to making blind see.
Well, put him in touch. I'd love to be in touch. That sounds brilliant. Yeah. Thank you very much for your wise words. Moeen, do you want to come in? And then we'll ask Sam to comment.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. I'll connect some of the points. People mentioned darkness, I think the Latin term ab cheo ordo is the plan by those at the top of the pyramid. It's deliberate. However, we've got to take a spiritual, and peace, there's also a need for a spiritual perspective. The situation is like humanity, as people have expressed in their own ways, we're like in a tunnel, dark tunnel. However, they themselves, like in Davos or etc., which we've just seen, they're talking about a global reset, for those who understand what they've been talking about. They have a plan, but humanity also has a plan of liberation and light in a tunnel. There's an end to the tunnel and light. So I actually say that their plan, what do you call them? The masters of the universe, they call themselves, your Larry Finksteins and Elon Musk's and what have you. They have their plan, but God has his plan. So we are powerful. We have spiritual power, but we are not connecting with it, and we're not really, as Sam said, collaborating, communities of collaboration. Now, this was all raised or tried to be raised at the last Global Vision Eschatology, conference, and the title was carefully chosen because, we've been looking at all these problems, and we called it the eschatologies of peace and justice in an age of genocide and the global reset. That's the situation we're in. And everything that's happened since December, Trump going crazy. I want Greenland. I want this, I want that, Venezuela. It proves what we're saying. That is not, by the way, a sign of American greatness. I would say it's the opposite. They realize power is going away from them, the rise of China, BRICS, and a weakening dollar. They're desperate. And I would go further from a spiritual angle. The people in heaven sometimes make those who are the pharaohs of the age go mad. They might talk about creating chaos, but there is also a spiritual dimension of making the pharaohs of our age go mad. So whichever view you take, the world is changing. It is dark, but we're in the tunnel, and our job is to go towards the light, to get out of it. And coming to nuclear weapons specifically, there's many issues I can raise, but let's stick to nuclear as an example. Right now, the US is saying we want to hammer you, Operation Hammer, Midnight Hammer, yeah? We want to hammer you, Iran. Now, I was looking at the real reason, or the alleged reason. They're arguing you have got nuclear whatever, yeah? Iran's claiming they haven't got nuclear weapons, but they might have technology and uranium. So the Americans who have the bloody arsenal, if I may use that term, a nuclear arsenal, and Israel, it's not on the table. How can Iran negotiate anything? That isn't negotiation. That is a colonial mindset. That is threatening. And that's why I said to Priscilla, I welcome you apologized for being American. That world is over. The world is not going to accept it. And if the Americans continue, they will trigger World War III. Let me tell you that. The world has changed. I know the white people or white civilization has been used to taking over, let's say, the Americas, for instance, Australia. They think they're entitled to that. Well, I'm sorry. That age is over. And you're going to be in for a bloody shock, and I mean that, if you think you can get away with that. So basically, whether Iran's, suggestion on Israel or Pakistan and India, yeah, on nuclear, would be to have a nuclear-free zone. But those on the other side, whether it's India in the case of Pakistan or Israel in the case of Iran, they want their diktat. Well, if you want your diktat, you better prepare for war. That is the situation. Now, what's the implication for peace activists? Well, we got to put justice at center stage. Otherwise, we are useful idiots. And also, since Sam is there, yeah, I came across your name in my research on the European Space Agency in the early 2000s. is that in India, I'm a Muslim. I've got Indian background, but from Pakistan. Yeah, you're probably Indian. You're in a city where genocide was committed. And you mentioned Ahmedabad. I don't know whether you're there. The thing is, in India, you've got a Nazi party in power. I make no bones about it. It's a Nazi party. Plus, you've got a Brahmanical elite who are talking about fellow Indians as untouchables. Never mind white racism, yeah? You got brown racism. That is disgusting. 25% of your population are, never mind Muslim, Dalit. What is a Dalit? Untouchables. That is despicable. The EU, which has done a trade deal, where is the human rights agenda? The only thing I can say is NGOs or think tanks. After my event, one top advisor to Erdogan was listening to it. He's invited me a top think tank event to do it together. So we do have power. We need to collaborate, but we are in dangerous times. One final point. I think I mentioned the spiritual dimension, yeah, Thomas?
Yes, please.
You've also mentioned that. I think ultimately, yes, we're all human, we're weak, we're also potentially powerful agents. However, there is a spiritual warfare going on. I believe, I'm talking about Satan or satanic forces, yeah? I believe they are ultimately manipulating humans. Ultimately, the humans are responsible because my understanding of satanic forces is they whisper to man. So ultimately, man is responsible. I think we need a seminar, maybe a private one, yeah, on the nature of the devil and satanic forces.
Sure.
Because the Illuminati, for instance, yeah, the Illuminati, what are they, how they function? So that's a proposal to you. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, that's very passionate. And you've adopted the Erdogan style of discourse. It's very important. Yes, I mean, I have written a book about the devil. I've proposed comparative diabology as a new academic discipline. I spoke about this at the last, eschatology conference, and it is a very important topic. Whatever our view is of, are we a Jungian and it's just sort of a split off bit of our personality, psychiatric research into possession and all that stuff. I mean, this is important stuff. And what do we do when world leaders seem to become possessed? We talk about people like Trump or Putin. Seems to me Putin is definitely downloading some dark forces. I'd say Netanyahu is, and also Trump, and I could name some others. I think as a think tank, where we're coming from should be about healing. Our duty as philosophers, as intellectuals, is as healers. Several of us on here have got PhDs. We're doctors of philosophy. That means we should be healing these people. And these are our clientele. They are crazy, actually. And the question then becomes not the one that Sam raised, how can we little people influence them? No. How can we heal them? That's that. I just want to put that on the floor. I'm
sorry, Thomas. I don't agree with that analysis. I just argued justice should be our central vision and mission. They should be slapped. If I saw Netanyahu or Trump, you know what I would do as a Muslim thinker and spiritual leader? I would slap him. Well, I would whip him if I could all the way to The Hague. And that would be too gentle. So no, I'm sorry. I disagree with you there. We are not healers. We're here to bring justice to the planet.
Well,
now that is a fundamental philosophical issue.
Sure. No, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think they're alternative positions. Sometimes, with certain types of people, healing requires, as you say, stern measures, justice. So I agree on that point. Can we move on a bit? Sam is on the phone.
Can I just highlight something on...
Chris has had his hand up for like 20 minutes. I just want to...
Sorry.
Please join us, Chris. Introduce yourself and do unmute.
Hello.
Welcome, sir.
Hello, my name is Chris Platts. I'm a Liberal Democrat living in the middle of France. But one thing that comes up from this conversation is the fact that weaponry is a product of capitalism. And until we get rid of capitalism,
yes,
you will never get rid of weapons, and that
Yeah.
is where we've got to achieve. The fact of the matter is that all this weaponry and war that's going on is actually helping to destroy the planet in terms of its environmental issues, because basically the consumption of oil and fossil fuel is far greater produced by the armed forces than anyone else. Justice. I agree with you. I view that justice is important. We have to have social justice, but we have to change it around away from the rich and the powerful, who are the ones in charge, to the ordinary people, so that they have a better equality and saying how things are managed. How we achieve that, I don't know. But decentralization is a way forward. And I think that would be the most important way forward, is to try and decentralize the planet, get rid of all these borders that we have dividing us and creating wars or creating power structures within each other. Yes, the EU has signed a deal with India. And as you say, the Indian government is just as bad as the rest of them in terms of their neo-fascist background. But we've just got to get rid of capitalism somehow, and and until that goes, we're going to be stuck in this mess for quite some time to come.
Yeah, excellent points. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Sam, for those points. Yes, Sam, I know you're on the phone, but can you hear me? If you want to come in at this point, you'll have to come off the phone, and then we can hear from you. Let's go to our next sort of topic, which is let's hear from George in Tanzania, because he's going to talk to us about some work going on in Africa, which is, an important part of this conversation. George, do you had a presentation prepared for us? Go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much indeed. I've been listening quite with a lot of interest in what is going on today and in our world. And I want really to talk a little bit about the role of intellectuals in strengthening good political leadership in Africa. And but I should say that I might be preaching to the converted. So I'm here not to explain the role of intellectuals in strengthening good leadership in Africa, but to invite you to reflect together on this role without taking anything for granted. And the ideas from Sam Pitroda and others, I think, make a lot of sense to me, especially about what can we do in a practical way. Of course, you know that the unexamined life is not worth living. We need to constantly review our purpose in life and our reason for being. And of course, the reason that why we are discussing this topic today is because of our interest in global affairs and peace policy in our troubled world. Already some people have mentioned Gaza, Ukraine, Kashmir, Iran, Sudan, Congo, Sudan, Venezuela, probably also Greenland. And for us here, particularly in Africa, we have issues of development that are still a real menace to us, poverty, inequality, unemployment, which have also caused a lot of precariousness. And we are living in a stratified world where we have divisions of people almost according to castes, and particularly we've got the core, and then the periphery, and then the core of the core, and the periphery of the periphery, where actually the rich and the politicians actually work together, undermining actually the welfare of the masses. And the masses, actually, most of them tend to be the silent majority. But then the question is silence a sustainable method of non-violence resistance? Or is it a ticking bomb for violent conflicts? We have cases of election processes which are just shambolic. And as we've got two colleagues here, Susan and Gogo, who work with me on the issues of clean energy transition. But we just noticed that there is a lot of political rhetoric where actually what is said on political platforms does not really trickle down to the masses. And so I think the role of us, whether intellectuals, academics, researchers, policymakers, is to see how we can connect really the people and the government, because actually the two somehow seem to be incompatible nowadays. You know, we heard about the principle of the separation of powers, but today I can see the principle of the separation of people from government, which I think is a terrible situation. Now, what is our role? I would like to just give you a brief definition of a university, because I believe that universities are also very important in, you know, grooming future intellectuals. Nyerere, the founding father of Tanzania, defined the university as an institution of higher learning, where students' minds are trained for critical thinking, for analysis, and for problem solving at the highest level. But what we see is that, you know, little analysis is done, little critical thinking is done, and most of the problems actually remain the same and have remained the same actually even since independence. So for us, we need to generate theories and translate them into practice. But we also we need to do this actually by combining being and doing, by walking the talk. Because as I said, the intellectuals should be a link between people and government. And we need to speak truth to power, but also speak truth to self. We should be able to sift truth from lies, but also giving hope to the poor and letting their voices be heard. So where do intellectuals find their strength? There are universal principles: truth, honesty, justice, love, virtue, rather than really self-interest, which seems to be driving the life that we are leading today, actually not only in Africa, but elsewhere in the world. And we've got several challenges, as our intellectuals have got several challenges. For example, this I call defection from academia to politics. We had so many people who are living the academic life, the intellectual life, just to become politicians, because politicians are much better paid. But also sometimes we've got a lack of support from peers, you know. People should actually be supporting you, you know, as Amena could say, Thomas, the way you support us, you know, intellectually. As I mean also the Africa Peace and Development Network, which I'm a member. And, but also there's self-censorship, you know, being afraid to speak the truth because we are afraid of the consequences. Some people have written about silences in academia and silences in NGOs. But also politicians have got their own challenges. And actually, particularly, this drive to strengthen political empires, oligarchies, through nepotism, paying lip service to the people. You know, you hear so many countries, you know, the People's Republic of China, peoples, or we, the American people. But when you go to catch, you know, Maduro, you're not going to contact or to, you know, look for support from the people, but you just do it, you know. So I think we are paying a lot of lip service to the people. And the bottom line here is profit making rather than service provision, treating people as ignorant or even secondary. And I think most of our leaders tend to focus on the present rather than the future. So there is rhetoric against facts. For example, here in Africa, we talk a lot about Ubuntu. You hear somebody talking about, you know, Ubuntu, but this person is mistreating people, you know. These are political leaders. So this is a blatant contradiction in terms, speaking about Ubuntu, but yet even killing people. chronism, where some people tend to just cling to those in power, come what may. And of course, the opposition, a lot of crackdown on opposition and disappearances of government critics. I think this is what also Thomas, puts as Sophia-phobic, where actually those people who really promote wisdom and love and philosophy and truth are hated, even killed. So I think we need to show a way as peace builders by being honest, by being lovers of truth, lovers of wisdom. In some places, actually, politics is becoming synonymous to, lying rather than an art of governing a state. So again, also to take a cue from Thomas, you've talked about in the past the Solomonic option. I'm trying to think of a Solomonic method of letting truth emerge organically in a dispute so that a lie is exposed non-violently. And I think non-violence is really crucial. I don't think we should be slapping anybody, because actually, in the end, we might actually end up doing even worse things to our fellow human beings. We are all human, and we all deserve actually, love and attention. And I should actually also add here that instead of relying on the artificial truth, we've talked about artificial intelligence, but I think there's also artificial truth, which come from some of the, government leaders, etc. But I think we need universal truth, which is also divine truth. And lastly, I want to touch upon the Gen Zs. And I think these are the people, young people, who have actually lost role models. They don't have role models. The Gandhis, the Mandelas, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, etc. And I think such people, actually, such role models should be actually included in our school curriculum. So now we are left with two choices, but probably there is one: the rule of the jungle or going back to civilization. And so thank you so much for your attention. I would like also to join you in looking for solutions to the problems that we have. For us in the Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, we are just turning 5 years old. So probably it's time now that we thought about what to do also in a practical way. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, well, thank you very much, George, for your talk and tabling all those important issues. I want to respond and also bridge to maybe our next presenter. It's a quote from Plato, who I have this brilliant book called the Plato Dictionary, and it's on the theme of corruption, which is a theme that George has hinted at. And oh, by the way, George, can you just tell me what was going on in Tanzania that you got so worried about? Did the elections turn out to be disputed, or did the guy refuse to stand down? What happened?
We've had a process just towards elections that wasn't actually well received by the majority of people, particularly the opposition parties. But the government just went along and carried out the elections. Now, some people had just decided that we should not have any elections unless we've got reforms. So there were no reforms. And so a group of people, particularly young people, took to the street, and they also, burnt down some government offices like police stations. And also the polling stations were also vandalized. So everything turned really chaotic. And because also the internet was shut, so there was no connection actually before the elections and shortly afterwards. And so that actually caused a lot of mayhem, and some people were killed, some demonstrators, even those who are not demonstrating against anything, some were just sitting at home. And this was unprecedented in Tanzania because it has never happened since independence. We thought that we were an island of peace, but actually this time things, the tide, turned, and
what
so
happened
at
in the
end?
Has it calmed down now? What happened?
Yeah, well, it calmed down because I think the kind of brutality that was carried out against the people became so powerful, so strong, that people decided to keep quiet. But again, so what we have is kind of tranquility, but not really peace. And because that will take a lot of time for things to get back to normal. And I think one of the ways is to make sure that there are certain reforms. Otherwise, then the situation might actually boomerang.
Right. Well, thank you. That's at least there's not burnings and so on going on anymore. But we'll watch that with interest. I want to go back to this quote from Plato because it's relevant to a lot of what we've been talking about, and it's about corruption. So this is from his Republic, famous book that we have all read probably. It is not of much consequence when the corruption of society and pretension to be what you are not extends only to cobblers, but when the guardians of the laws and of the government are only seemingly and not really guardians, that is the utter ruin of the state. For they alone are the authors of order in a state. I think this is an interesting quote because my reading of that is, like, there's always petty corruption going on in society, street level, like, I'll sell you something that's, I'll try and get a bit more of it. It's not that important, little bits of corruption. It goes on in families, Dad says to daughter, you can't go out tonight. Daughter says, if you let me go out, I'll trim your beard. Sort of wheeling and dealing, right? That's not a problem. What Plato's grumbling about is when the people that are supposed to be in charge, the leaders, the guardians of the state, like the presidents, prime ministers, MPs, judges, etc., when they become corrupt, then all hell breaks out because they're the guardians of the society. And if corruption reaches up to that leadership element, then the thing rots from the head down, so to speak. And that, I think, is the problem we've got on the planet at the moment. When you look at the American leadership, you have a corrupt guy, obviously, Trump, appointing other corrupt people to help him run a corrupt government. He's taken over the courts and packed it with people that have no sense of justice, to go back to Moeen's incredibly important word. They're into power and fiddling the laws so that they can advance their power. That's what Plato is grumbling about. And I think we've got the same in Russia, where Putin, who's also has a criminal mentality, seized power, has been oppressing dissidents, like Navalny and others, and then invading other countries using the military state. I mean, there's another example of what Plato was grumbling about. I think Brexit was an example. We had the Tory party getting into power and doing ridiculous stuff against the will of the people and against society, So that's, I think, our mission. We have to be, as George said, as intellectuals, as teachers, academics, thinkers, we have to be like a hermetic bridge builder between the people of power. Not all of them are corrupt. There are good people in power. There are good judges in the states. There are good governors standing up to Trump. We have to somehow, act as a bridge between the poor, the displaced, and those who have all the power, So it's a big job we're doing here. And thank you. Can we move on and talk about Ireland? Can I ask Sean to give us an update? Because I look to Ireland as a beautiful country on the far northwest of Europe, which stands for peace. You have a peace president. Tell us what's happening with the European Peace Agency. Have you heard back from them? First of all, maybe tell the group what that plan is. What are we trying to do here?
Yes, yeah. So very briefly, Thomas, there is an agency called the European Space Agency, and it's set up there some years ago. So Thomas had this idea, and it's other people as well contributed, that we should propose that the European Union set up a European Peace Agency, and it would be structured on the lines of a European Space Agency, because that's there already, and the structural arrangements for it. So we took it up here in Ireland and decided to present a proposal to the Irish government, but they haven't really responded very well so far. But I mean, it's even more as the crises go on in different parts of the country. This idea, or different parts of Europe, the idea is even more important, and it's not unheard of. Originally, there was this. The Paris Charter of 1990 for a new Europe, including the Eastern European countries. And it was set up by all the leaders at the time, by 57 countries, and signed by them. And so it would be something similar to reinvigorate or recharge that concept of the Charter of how to create peace in Europe, a peaceful Europe going forward. So we have presented the proposal to the Irish government, and they are looking at it because they know that there is quite a substantial majority of the voters in Ireland who are interested in peace, because we put forward that president there recently. So, I mean, that's roughly where we are at the moment, but nothing very concrete. But if we don't propose it and don't try and meet with the ministers and people in power, it won't happen. So we are moving along slowly on it.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I mean, just to correct one little thing in what you said, the European Peace Agency proposal isn't that the European Union should set this up. It wouldn't be a European Union agency. The European Space Agency isn't an agency of the European Union. It's independent of, it has legal autonomy, but it has friendly relations with the European Union. And it would be the same with the European Peace Agency. It wouldn't be a body within the European Union. It would be separate to and autonomous from. But the European Union would help fund it. The European Union funds 20%, I think, or even more, of the European Space Agency, for instance, because it realizes it's a good thing and it wants to promote science and European space science. So the argument is the European Space Agency gets that support. So would the European Peace Agency. But it wouldn't control it, and that's important. So the European Union wouldn't be able to say, oi, you can't do that. You know, it would have its own scientific intellectual autonomy. I also want to give an update from Australia, because I've been in touch with Ian Fry, Dr. Ian Fry, who is a founder member of the World Intellectual Forum. I met him in India with Swami Chaturvedi. I spoke to him at length this morning. He was going to try and get up early to join this call, but he's in his 80s and I think it was too much. But he's very keen to get the Australian government, he has links to the government, it's a Labour government in power there, to fund a high-level conference in Australia, which he wants us to go to. You know, and the European Peace Agency would be linked to other countries outside of Europe, in the same way that the European Space Agency has deals with the Japanese Space Agency, the Indian Space Agency, the Australian Space Agency. They collaborate at the highest intellectual levels about space science, right? What I want the European Peace Agency to do is the same. So we would have bilateral agreements with Australia, with Japan, with China, for instance. They also collaborate with the ESA. And so I'm just updating people that Ian Fry is very keen about this. He wants to get this going, and he's pushing on the Australian government to help fund a big conference for us. So that's quite good news. And he was.
Thomas, can I come in, please?
Please do, yes.
Once you're finished.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, your idea, firstly, on the European Peace Agency is great. Let me congratulate you. However, this idea about what you call approaches to non-violence, etc., yeah? I'm emphasizing justice. Let me develop that further.
Sure.
I deliberately, on our WhatsApp group, put up the videos from the UK Parliament event in the Parliament, House of Lords. We've also done events on money. And in 2011, we were trying to launch something called Roma Commission. And what does that mean? Repatriation of misappropriated money and assets. Now, what's that got to do with peace? Well, coming back to what I said about looting the world by the Western world, as though they own the world. You don't own the world. God owns the world. You will be brought down for your arrogance. The thing is that the looted money, right, that you owe the global south, some of that money, instead of me saying, give me the Kohinoor, which I'm entitled to, yeah, from someone from the Indian subcontinent, some of that, what's the word, compensation should go into the, what you call European Peace Agency. Secondly, those who don't want to slap people like Netanyahu and Trump like George, I'm sorry, we disagree, right? We have to say I don't just want to say to you, I agree with you. We not part company, but we have a different approach. For instance, the developing world wants decolonization. If you say to me they don't, you've not got a clue about the world. So part of the peace agenda mustn't just be to prevent war, which we agree, we don't disagree, but the world is still in the white man's image and control. So a massive job is required to decolonize everyone. I mean everyone. So that should be part of the peace agency. It's not just about this what do you call, I don't know what it is, this concept or rhetoric of nonviolence. There are real issues of power, structural power, injustice that the peace and justice movement needs to address. Thank you, Thomas.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And
Thomas,
yeah.
Can I just come back to summarise where we are at the European Peace Agency? From the Charter of Paris in 1990, there was an attempt to set up an agency, an organisation that could bring about peace in Europe. I'm just talking about Europe for the moment. And It was called the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE. Now, it worked along for a number of decades, but it failed. It eventually failed in Ukraine. Obviously, it did fail. And I feel the peace agency that Thomas and ourselves are proposing, the failure there wasn't enough intellectual support for that. It was more a very political thing, and peace, where there is deep historical grievances and conflicts, as there were in many of the Eastern European countries, just politics wasn't going to work. It wouldn't solve the problems. We need the other issues from the intellectuals, from the philosophers. So I think that's where the peace agency, if we do get it established, will contribute at that level. Because how do you solve those deep-rooted grievances and conflicts, ethnic conflicts in Europe that were left over after the Second World War and were never dealt with? And they are coming back to haunt us now in Europe and in other countries, in India, the subcontinent. There's such a massive amount of work to be done, but with just a peace agency in Europe can contribute at that level, or support the agency that's there already if we can get it re-established, the OSCE. But find out how it failed, why it failed. It failed because they didn't have the contribution that Thomas wants to make, that intellectual, moral, truthful, at a very personal level as well. So I'm hopeful if we did get it established, it can make a contribution.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I hope so. let me just respond to some of what Moeen raised, and then we've got James Thring who's joined us, and I'm sure he'll want to come in, and he'll have useful things to say. I call this the problem of the knee on the neck. I'm going back to George Floyd. You see, the white races, say in America, have held power so long, they're afraid that when they let it go, what happens then? I'm reading the biography of Desmond Tutu at the moment, who was educated, and I'm reading about his studies in South Africa. And what's so interesting is the apartheid government, the first thing they controlled under Verwoerd, the Prime Minister of South Africa, was they took control of education. They stopped black kids being able to go to proper schools and learn real stuff. They said they had to learn only Bantu culture. You know, they weren't allowed to actually learn useful stuff. So they controlled the education to diminish the power of the black generations. Tutu escaped because he managed to go and train at a theological college, having already trained as a teacher. So I think we shouldn't underestimate, Frantz Fanon and other intellectuals have said that the decolonialization of the mind is what's needed. And going back to what our friend from Kashmir said, we have to stand together on this. You know, whatever our colour, our language, our culture, our creed, our religion, see it as one mission we're on, to decolonialize our minds from the white supremacists. You know, the trouble is in America, they've seized power. The very people that we think are ridiculous have now stolen America, whilst we weren't watching, you know. So it's a serious question. You know, how do we take back the collective mindset of what I regard as the broad, decent majority of humanity that are, whatever our colour, religion, we all want to get along and have common goals, common visions for peace. And peace includes justice. It includes sharing. It includes caring for nature. It includes the environmental crisis. It includes getting rid of nuclear weapons. It includes the issue of men and women, which Mahmoud raised. I'm shocked to hear about rapes going on in Kashmir. I mean, who is investigating it? I'm very sad that our friend Sam Petroda had to go because of some local emergency, because I talked to Sam about this. I said, we'll talk about Kashmir, Sam, when you come. What is that as an issue for you? And I'm not breaking confidence. He said to me, oh, it's not an issue. I said, what do you mean, Sam? Kashmir's not an issue. And he repeated it. He said, no, it's not an issue. You know, now that is a highly educated, middle-class Indian guy who lives in America, but for him, Kashmir is not an issue. And I was going to pin him down at this meeting and get him to say why it's not an issue. I just think that's wrong. But that's the kind of... Okay, so it's ignoring stuff. The word ignorance, if we look at the etymology, the world, going back to Plato, he said there's no evil, there's just ignorance. There isn't a devil, actually, but there is collective ignorance. And ignorance is what people do, you know. How can we fight ignorance is the question. Chris, you've got your hand up. Do you want to just come in and then Mahmoud, come back to us? Chris first. Do put your hand up if you've got something very important to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you mentioned about the American people in power, but they've always been in power because they own the means of production. And until that means of production is actually spread across everyone, and we all have an equal say in how things are produced, they will always remain in control. And as you can see throughout the world, when these people at Davos, the billionaires there and the small minority billionaires are still doing very well, thank you very much, because they're still getting all the money from everything as a consequence of the way that the world is constructed. And this comes back to the rule of capitalism again, I'm afraid. You know, well, you've still got state capitalism in Russia, you've still got state capitalism in China, you've got state capitalism across most of the other sort of autocratic worlds, and also, all right, we may call it capitalism, free capitalism in America and the rest of Europe, but it's still basically the small minority of entrepreneurs or business people and billionaires owning the means of production. And until that is released, we're stuck, basically.
Okay. Can I ask Simon to come in? Simon's joined us from Sussex. He is an economist who specialises in Marxist economics, and he spoke brilliantly at the last eschatology conference. Simon, what's the solution here? How can we get rid of capitalism, and what's your view of that? Is that a feasible option? You've heard Chris. Can we have sort of some moderate kind of capitalism, ethical capitalism, I call it? Can we keep that and still have peace?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the danger of. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure because I'm on my laptop. I mean, people are wedded, aren't they, emotionally to the culture of capitalism as well as having the prosperity of it. And it's difficult to bite the hand that feeds as well. So there's lots of issues, I think, that hold people to the system. And I think most of us know that it's flawed, but people remain attached, and it's just so difficult to dislodge. This project, I've kind of joined late, and I'm kind of new to what you're doing here, as you know, Thomas, as we spoke on the phone. But it's whatever endeavor to try to find some sort of common position on our economy. My key, just if those of you that don't know me, I'm sort of really PPE. My main research was in economics, but really I'm PPE. I'm studying philosophy still, and earlier degrees in politics, but my PhD was in economics. What I'm really interested in is people finding the answers, and I think they are, frankly, mystical. Frankly, I think people just have to find some form of common understanding of oneness, and that's where I see peace from. In terms of the free market system, I just have no clue on what will actually transcend it or how we can transcend it.
Yeah, but no, Simon, you've also spoken about Christianity at the last meeting, didn't you? And so, in a sense, Christ's teachings showed a way to access that universality.
Yes, but then it can also lead, as we know, to Christian Zionism in the United States and religious wars in France and various.
It can be misinterpreted.
I'm interested. I mean, my general view on that is that there are many paths to discover the divine, and Christ, of course, had contributions to make of profundity. So I guess we just need to find something common about our common substance. And I think you used a phrase, Thomas, when we chatted on the phone, sophobia, which stuck in my mind after you said it. I thought, yes, that's it. We've got so much fear of letting go of our doctrinal ideas that we want to sort of engage with people from different mystical traditions, but there's things that hold us back from doing it. And personally, just like to say publicly, I'm very interested in trying to find ways to transcend any fears of those deep-seated sort of views that we might have of people from different mystical traditions.
Yeah. No, thanks. Sophia-phobia, I think it's important. I'm going to try and translate that book into French and get it discussed in Paris. You've just given me a new word, by the way. I think I've just reformed. My parents' generation talked about communism. It had a checkered history. I think we should reform it and call it commonism. You said, how are we going to find what we have in common? Let's call it commonism. And there we are. Problem solved. Okay, James, do you want to come in? You've listened very carefully. What do you think of Christian Zionism? Is that part of the solution, or should we ditch it? What's your view, James?
Zionism definitely isn't part of our solution. It might be a part of the Israeli solution because it supported them in the war against Iraq, which destroyed one of the main supporters of Palestine way back in 2003. It was their vote, apparently, because there's such numerous voters in America that swayed Bush to carry on with the war that probably was going to take out.
It was shocking. Can I just introduce you, James? People may not have met you. James has been involved with the Ministry of Peace. He was involved in a group in Parliament trying to get, a Department of Peace, a Ministry of Peace in Britain. All kinds of political mud was thrown at these people, but he, like me, has held on like a Rottweiler to this vision that Britain need not be a belligerent, war-loving state, that we should have a Ministry of Peace. We should prioritise peace policy at the heart of our foreign policy. And therefore that raises issues about why did we go to war in Iraq? Why have we allowed overflights over Gaza so we can help the Israelis bomb even more people to death? We need to review our intelligence, our military policies, and orientate them towards peace. So, James, tell us how you've been trying to do that.
Well, I started off, I'm a planner by profession, and I started off with an organisation called Planning for Peace, because I was in the the Professions for World Disarmament and Development.
Right, yeah, I know that. I knew that.
Planner, and there didn't seem to be much planning going on. It was reaction to current situations. So I'm also versed in forecasting, probability analysis, and I think that the world would be, certainly our sort of input to the world affairs would be enhanced if we could seize the opportunity to look at and consider and evaluate the alternative futures. It sounds perhaps a little bit abstract, but what it does is puts the people who've got an agenda for war on the spot, because they've then got to justify why they want to destroy the Palestinians or Iraq or Libya or whatever it is, whereas most of us don't. And most of us would want to subscribe, I think, to scenarios which are about peace, about building relationships, about developing technology. But I think the Chinese are the sort of, you might not agree, a lot of people don't, but I think the Chinese have made an excellent job of turning hard work and technological exploration into peaceful means. They, by and large, don't attack other countries. Okay, they might have an eye on Taiwan, but that's part of China as far as I'm concerned anyway. It's the Americans there who are causing the trouble there, and that could be said for nearly all the conflicts that we're addressing. But the Chinese, I made great friends with them a long time ago, 20 years ago. The embassy people came up to me after a speech I'd given in the Institute of International Affairs, defending, again, Palestine, denigrating the Israelis, and criticizing our government for supporting the Israelis against the people we should be supporting because we gave their country away to someone else. They came up to me and said, "Would you come to lunch?" And we had several lunches with them. They kept inviting me back. And they seemed to be listening, first of all, to what I was saying about the need for peace. I was also asking them to intervene on the United Nations Security Council when America tried to veto a resolution in favor of the Palestinian situation or against the Israelis, by saying, why don't you employ Article 27 of the UN Charter, which says parties to a dispute forfeit their right to vote. Now, America has always been a party to the disputes over the Palestine situation because they support the Israelis and not the Palestinians. So it's not a difficult thing to prove. But for some reason, I don't think they gave me a reason. They don't do it. One of the ambassadors told me when I asked him why this was, he said, oh, well, even the Chinese sometimes want to get a resolution passed and they don't want the Americans vetoing their vote on the situation. Well, I can't think of any examples, but apart from Taiwan, but maybe the Uyghurs, but
Sure. Those are important issues, James. About China, we have Priscilla with us, whose good friend Susan Seats, who's part of the Restorative Justice Council, just spent a couple of months in China as an educator. She spoke at our last meeting very favourably about the Chinese academics and also their links to Africa. She said she'd been in a university in Wuhan and they were visiting African scholars. So they're doing intellectual diplomacy at a high level, the Chinese, at the moment. And can I just also ask George, you've got links to this Chinese peace studies professor in Nanjing. They have a centre for peace studies. What do you know about that, George? Have they got a thriving academic centre for peace studies in Nanjing? Have you been there?
No, I haven't been there, but I'm looking forward to being there one day. But what I do know about that center, actually, they have a UNESCO chair there. And so they've been busy actually teaching, researching, publishing and on peace and various other issues. So I think they are quite engaged. They've got also a journal, of course, it's in Chinese, which is open, to receiving publications from different languages. So I know, so Liu Cheng is one of our colleagues that we founded together this Africa Peace and Development Network, together with our German colleague, Igor Spiegel, and the American Professor Lester R. Kurtz. And together we've been also organizing these weekly webinars on global peace studies for sustainable development in Africa.
Yeah, no, there. And is Liu Cheng, what is his background? Is he a sociologist or an economist or what?
No, he's a historian and, as you may put it, of all things, of British history.
Right. No, that's excellent. I must reach out and, talk to him. That's great. Okay, so we're coming up towards we've got 10 more minutes. We should have a quick go round, really. Final words of wisdom from people. Mahmoud, can we ask you to go first? You've contributed a lot to this meeting. Thank you for coming. All of us who are members of the Lib Dems should join his Kashmir group. I will certainly join it. Thank you for raising it as an issue. Any final words you want to share with us, Mahmoud?
Yes, thank you very much again putting me first. I appreciate that. Okay, can I apologize? I can't see on my computer the yellow hand. It should be somewhere along the bottom. I couldn't see it, so that's why I kept sort of raising my hand. And just to sort of put it final hands, I mean, I've said what needs to be said, but just on particular, my friend Sam, I hope his friend is okay and fine. I don't actually blame Sam, believe it or not, because first of all, in regards to the situation in Kashmir, I explained the bad situation of the press, but also the far and the Indian government. If you understand something, the BJP is an offshoot of RSS. The RSS is an offshoot of the 1930 Nazis. So you can see what the poor people of India have to grapple with.
Sure.
And so basically what happens is the far-right government of India does not allow any aid agency, any investigation, any outside press whatsoever. So the people of India are kept in the dark, totally in the dark. If you watch the news channel, you'll sort of go, whoa, what is that? It's all, everything great. And most of the news channels are now being brought up by the Adani Group, which is a supporter of Modi. And obviously the support him because he allows them to buy so many companies and things like that. So it's all about money. So actually, and the other thing to remember is that India is very diverse, it's the size of Europe. So we can't just say everybody in India is like the BJP. It's very important to get that. There are some very good Indian people, very peace-loving Indian people who work with it. But the other thing, where they do have a far-right government, and I've come across where I've said to someone, well, that's, can you speak at a meeting? They said, no, we can't show our face because our passport would be taken away. At one particular event, outside the Indian embassy, the demonstration, and one of those people, I noticed things quite good. And a guy whispered to me, said, the guy making the film? There's a guy with a mobile going very close to people's faces making a film. He said, look, I can't go forward, but he's actually from the Indian agency. So I was a journalist for a TV channel. So I came up to him, put the mic to his face and said, excuse me, can you tell me who you are, why you're here, and why you're filming people? And he didn't reply. And I kept badgering him, because I wanted him to reply. I wanted to expose him. And eventually I followed him all the way, guess where? The Indian embassy door. I begged him so much, he gave up and walked back. And he exposed. And what happened, why they make a film closely, is then they take those film, find the people's passports, details, everything, and then take their passport away.
Well, that's a shocking bit.
Yeah, and this is not something that I can stand up in a court of law and swear to this. It's not like a conspiracy theory. This is what happens, So I don't blame Sam when he says everything is normal, because there is no independent journalism, not just in Kashmir, but even in India itself, Sure. And last but not least, I want to thank everyone for coming. I think we have a very diverse group. And when you get a chance to speak, you get a chance to listen to one another, it's when you realize we are all one human race. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And Sam actually runs a weekly group, a discussion group focused on India. It's called Act for Bharat. And I've been to these meetings every Thursday. And he has a whole bunch of Indian intellectuals, most of them living in India, but some are in diaspora. And they're discussing all these issues from the perspective of the left. These are the opposition. This is the Congress supporting Indians. And so, he is on the side of the angels. But it was interesting, his comments. Okay, Moeen, last thoughts. How are you?
But not a lot to say, really. I think I've said what I've said. Just to say good to meet everyone and you. In terms of maybe, I do in the WhatsApp group give my hourly briefings because things are really dark, yeah? But what one thought was, you're talking about getting the message out there, yeah?
Yeah.
Is because we, on our main website, we are, what's the word? Voluptuous for video, the best thinkers in the world. Anyway, yeah, we upload them. I think YouTubers, yeah, given my daily work, YouTubers, there's a lot globally who are actually doing a lot of good work, and they have, some of them, if not a lot of them, have a big following, over 5 figures, 10,000, 100,000. If we can develop, indeed, for instance, in London recently, we did something on Kashmir with Abbas, deep dive. There's thousands of these guys. I think all of us should try to make an effort to contact YouTubers, those who make podcasts, broadcasts, and see whether they're up for some sort of program. So that's one idea I have. In terms of our own event for 26, unless something changed dramatically, we've got an offer by a top think tank on security and defense, which has the ear of the president. Turkey, as you know, is middle of the world. It does have a strong diplomatic, profile. They're interested in a joint event with Global Vision. That will be a proper event, not online, real conference. So I think I've said enough. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And keep up your good work, Moeen. You're doing brilliantly. Claire, last thoughts. Lovely to see you. Don't underestimate the importance of art and sound and music. It's what you're doing is important. And the Delphic Academy, by the way, we're meeting on the 14th of February I see you have a Orpheus's lyre behind you, so that's excellent.
Oh, God. Here are my last words and thoughts. Hang on.
Oh, wow. Oods.
Wow.
Wow.
So I'm staying with my friend Gary, who is an oud and a tahu and a saz player
Yeah.
and a violinist. And I'm sort of embedded in a beautiful feeling of peace being here. I've been here a month. And that's changed me, and it continues to change me. And it's weird because it means that I can hear Sam say what I feel and know to be true. And yet I somehow, in a state of peacefulness, can hold the pain of all the shit that's going down here in the States, like monstrosity stuff, and the awareness that many people of color have been living with this for generations, and now it's suddenly hit the whiteboard, right? And so now everyone's talking about it as if it's new, which is a good thing that it's being talked about. It's messy. Everything's very messy at the moment. And I appreciate your encouragement, Thomas, regarding arts, because it's very easy to diminish anything that we're doing, I think, if we don't, when we look at the scale of the problem. But I do think there is something of great value and importance in touching the heart and the soul of life. And for me, the arts in all their various beautiful forms give us a chance, each of us, to reconnect, to burrow into ourselves and then express something that becomes recognizable collectively, something about the authenticity of feeling, just feeling, and then expressing it. And there's some alchemy in that. So,
yeah, very much.
you know,
Well, thank
yeah.
you for your wise words, Claire, and keep it
Thank
up.
you.
Well up to San Francisco, a cradle of intelligence in a brave new world. Yeah. Sean, final words from you.
Yes, Thomas, thanks very much. And I'm delighted because, as Sam was saying, this is a network. We are working on a network. He was talking about that it should be bigger networks, but it's great to hear different areas that people are working in and contributing from, because we're a very small minority of people who believe in peace and peaceful settlements of conflict. So it's great to get feedback from around the world. No, thanks for organising. And just the other thing, we should have mentioned this, or we should mention the doomsday clock was moved on recently again, quite closer to midnight, which is a kind of a worrying aspect from the nuclear scientists when they move it on. So thanks very much to everyone.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sean. Give our love to Ireland. Yes. Ros, are you still with us? Do you want to final last words from you, madam, in lovely Sussex?
Thank you. Yeah, good reminder about 85 seconds to midnight. But I think it was a beautiful contribution. I'm sorry, who just spoke, surrounded by ouds, because I do absolutely value my my Buddhist practice and my heart math practice. And I think what we radiate into the field is very important. In how we respond is what matters. Yeah, so that would be my contribution to echo that. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Susan, can you still hear us? Do you want to say some final words? You spoke earlier, but what's your take as a sociologist of the role of ideas and dissidence?
Well, thank you. What I think is we should continue to give voices to the people who we interact with and also hear from them, so that we as intellectuals can be able then to package well what they say about or what's going on or what we have been discussing here. And instead of only us doing intellectual our interpretation from what we understand, but we should also continue to listen to the people on the ground and how they are also interpreting what is going on and how they are also dealing with what is happening. And therefore, that should be also our role. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, reminding us of the importance of listening. Very important. Priscilla, last thoughts from you, madam.
Thank you so much, Thomas, and thank you everyone for your ideas on this. I love the arts connection. Thank you, Claire. I think that's so important, and we need more and more of that, especially the music. To me, going to the theater is like going to church. So that's important, I think. And I love the word communism, Thomas. I'll keep that in my heart because I think hearing from all of you, we have a lot in common, and we're a global group, and we're seeing a turn. We're seeing a change. When people band together, there's change. They're kicking people out of Minnesota now because they did so much damage there. It's just horrific for people to see it. So to me, that's a positive move in the right direction. So thank you again, everyone.
Well, thank you for what you do, Priscilla. It's amazing. Chris, last words. You'll have to unmute.
Yes, I just want to recall what's been said about the fact that we're all human. And I think that's the most important thing, and realistically, we won't be equal until we're all equal.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Wise words. And Chris's grandfather was a painter in Paris. So part of that Sicily generation of Brits who stayed in France, thank God, and fell in love with French culture.
But there's another part of my family. A relative went to live in America and married a teacher who was involved in one of the first civil rights demonstrations in America. His name was George Martin, and he also went on and taught Martin Luther King a lot of interesting subjects as well.
Well, that's a distinguished. Did you get voted onto the council, Chris? Because I haven't spoken to you since. Did you get onto the Lib Dem council thing? You stood for election. Did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. And what about Jenny? Did Jenny get on?
No, she didn't either.
Oh dear. There we are, democracy. Yeah. Anyway,
but
well done for trying.
I look forward to hearing from Global Vision and Mahmoud and George as well, because I think they're wonderful characters.
Sure. Okay. Right. James, final words of wisdom from you. Yeah.
I was going to ask if we could hear from Nicolette in Greece. Could we have a final word from her? I've spoken already, so
Okay. You're passing the baton. Nicolette, you're on, madam. Nicolette was brought up in Sparta. I was terribly impressed when I heard that, because they're the origin of all these troubles. But she's turned.
I knew you had something. Well, I'm actually, where I am now is by Thermopylae, like 10 kilometers, which is very interesting. They're developing a monument. And yeah, final words. Thank you very much for letting me participate in these. I read from a lot of interdisciplinary sources, and I'm connected with many groups, and I don't really fit here, so I appreciate that you let me learn. I think that I have a lot of names and contacts to give people, but I don't find this forum is really working, where I could share anything. But maybe if you ask questions, I could share something. I'm sorry that I can't contribute more.
Well, you're welcome. If you think of people we should be in touch with, put them in chat, or email me separately, because we're in touch.
Okay.
That's
I did that. I'm finding a lot of comfort in René Girard, who's, French, and I proposed that to you guys before. I see Satan fall like lightning. And he went into anthropology, and in reading about him and desire and coveting, the 10th commandment, do not covet. People don't even know what that is. They don't believe that they're envious, It's the original sin in the Bible was the killing of Cain and Abel, Romulus and Remus, and France has never had a monarchy ever that never killed its heir. They don't have succession. There's so many things you can understand, I feel, from anthropology that I have not learned in other places.
Can I make a suggestion, Nicolette? Why don't you give us a little talk about René Girard's work at the next meeting in a month's time? I'll put you on the spot. Give us a little talk.
I think this Wolfgang, what about Wolfgang Palaver that I proposed to Sean? He's now working for the OSCE. He's a Catholic theology professor in Austria, but he was a friend of Girard. He's with the Conference on Violence and Religion, and he's now just gotten a position with OSCE.
Oh, right. Well, okay, let's invite him.
Maybe? Do you think? I could try.
No, definitely. Well, I'll invite you, but give me his details. Send me an email, and I'll invite him to come to the next meeting.
Okay, I put in the chat his LinkedIn, and I have his email from some organization. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so look, thank you very much. I'd like to finish. I'm going to finish with my last go. I'm going to read a poem because we talked about the arts. I'm also a poet, and I work with Poetry for Peace. And we're coming up to Imbolc. In the Druid world, I'm a Druid and a Bard. In the Celtic world, this is dedicated to Bridget, and we call it Imbolc, which is a sacred time. This is a poem I wrote over 10 years ago. It's called Thanks to Bridget, Imbolc, 2012. You came to me amidst a gleaming of sunlight, breaking through on a cold morning. Suddenly, you were here again, and the heart within me leapt up, and quicksilvered like a salmon going up over the falls. Slowly it dawned on me who it was I'd been writing to all these years, all those poems, as if to an absent muse. It was an Imbolc to remember, clear, bright, gleaming, the waters of the loch smoothed, as your skin, O goddess, and your solar lover pouring out to you endlessly what it takes to enclothe your beauty. You of the green leaves everywhere, coyly beginning to sprout. You of the buds shimmering on the twig tips, about to come out. You of the cluster of birds draped on the branching tree, before the window, curving like designs for Solomon's arbours. In you, Bridget, are the secrets of many centuries of praises locked away. In you, Bridget, is the word, taking us home, cradled from grave to womb, and back again. In you, Bridget, is the threefold symmetry of the wheeling stars, and the promise, and the lips, and the hips, and the ships, and the seas between. Thanks to Bridget. So happy Imbolc, everyone, and see you next time. Keep the faith, and blessed be, as they say.
Thank you for organizing it.
Yes.
My duty.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for organizing. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully
Thank
we'll
you. Bye.
meet again. Yeah.
Thanks, Mahmoud, for coming.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.